can you describe for us how someone with ADHD might be feeling and might be experiencing things? Because we all, there are all these perceptions of people from the outside, but like, what might someone be going through? How can we approach people with empathy, understanding, the struggle?
One of the biggest things, particularly with children, is just this constant sense of, I'm not doing a good job. The constant
Mm-hmm.
sense that they're always disappointing their important adults or loved ones in their lives. These people out there think that I'm perfectly able to do these things and I just don't, versus I just can't. And so there's this sense of, I can never get it right. I can never get it right. And everybody expects me to be able to get it right, and I can never get it right. So then what's wrong? And there's, many variations of it, but I think it typically will boil down to some version of that. I just can't get it right. Everybody seems to think I can, and I can't.
What are the kinds of things you've advised parents to think about, or ways they can talk with their children? And I'd be interested to know if you were able to objectively apply that as a parent yourself, or if it gave you a different understanding of how to advise parents.
It gave me a deepened understanding experiencing it. And I would say that we have had, it's still rocky some days, but I think that what has really helped is just the foundational understanding of what ADHD. Because again, as I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned earlier, if you don't understand ADHD to be an executive function disorder, you will approach them differently. You will approach each
Mm-hmm.
situation as something to discipline out of your child versus,
Mm-hmm.
okay, there's something that they're not able to do because there's a lag in their executive function. So how can I approach this situation to teach them this, or to just, provide that external executive function for them to move them through this situation? So, not trying to throw my husband under the bus or anything, but, this is not his field of practice. I know this is not his field of practice. So I could see the difference in parenting
Mm-hmm.
from my perspective, because this is what I do and I understand it from that executive function disorder versus from him as he was still learning it. There's definitely different ways that we approach situations because of our different understandings of it. And so the very first thing I encourage parents to do is learn as much as you can about it. Learn as much as you can, read as much as you can. And I'm particularly, I really enjoyed Dr. Russell Barkley's take on ADHD. And he's the one who really made a push to focus on the executive function disorder part of it. And once you learn as much as you can, learn what the executive functions are, the self-awareness, the motivation, and so on and so forth. And so then it can kind of give you a framework or buckets, if you will. Whenever you're observing your child's behavior, understanding that their behavior is a communication of where they are lacking or lagging on a certain skill, and then
Mm-hmm.
try to provide that kind of external executive function to help them process through a situation. So there's this understanding that there's an executive function age versus their chronologic age. And so understanding that the executive function age is going to lag at least a year and a half below their chronologic age. And so then if you think about that, you have a 10-year-old, right? Then you can think about them. There's some parts of them that may behave like an 8.5-year-old. And then also understanding that this is not necessarily a global executive function delay. They might be at level with their peers in one sphere, and then they might not be at level with their peers in a certain sphere. And so then understanding this part lets you know, because I'll hear a lot from parents and, experience it in my house too. Well, he's able to do this, she can do this, but how come they can't do that, And so if you understand that there's an executive function age and the executive function age might be different definitely is going to be different than the chronologic age. And it's not all across the board of all executive functions. It may be certain ones.